Fans speak where the plan runs deep. The team grind hard, don't eat, don't sleep. From best ball dreams to DFS streaks, they help you print money every single week. No cap, no gimmicks, we breaking limits. NFL bets, yeah, we live this business. Meg and Steve, that OG vision. Draft room killers on a lifelong mission. More stress to the Sunday spread. Fan speaks, that voice that's inside your head. Best ball, DFS, NFL bets. They built it brick by brick, no regrets. Fan speak team, printing money since day one. Fan speak, forever.
Welcome back to another episode of the Best Ball Lunch Break Hour, Talking Balls Steve-O Speak. We are back again, another day. No trades today. We'll see. I know everyone's looking if an A-Chan trade is coming up next. So far, it doesn't sound like that's not going to be the case anytime soon. But I do think I wouldn't totally rule it out at this point. If I'm the Dolphins, I would go all in. Don't do what the Jets did. Hang on to Breece Hall. As much as A-Chan's a great running back, you're probably 2 years away from really contending. So I would love to see them make a move, get them on a better team, get our fantasy value up. But we are back. We are right now. I'm updating my big board in the back end. I sent an update last night to our YouTube, our Substack. Updating my big board, made some changes from where I was yesterday afternoon at this time. When I did this, I moved Jalen Waddle up a little bit more, not as high as some people have, but not as low as I currently had him. And, moved Sutton down. So it's kind of a close range between the two. Sorry, I need to download this so I can upload it to Underdog. But I do think the Jalen Waddle trade is right now. I think the ADP is still just wrong. Like where people are drafting him, it's just wrong. I think it's a good 1-2 combo. I think it's great for Bo Nix, but I think end of the day, Sutton is still more likely to outscore Waddle. Even if Waddle gets more yards, Sutton has more touchdown potential. They'll probably have very similar target numbers. Sutton might end up with more catches because I imagine his will be more in the intermediate range, and even his, though he actually had more downfield targets last year than Waddle. As I kind of said yesterday, Sutton's downfield targets are in like that 20 to 30 range, where Waddle is looking more at like the 50, 60 yard deep shots, which are just so much harder. I don't care who you are; it's so much harder to make that a thing, like significantly. Sorry, it's not going well to catch those at a very high rate. So I just kind of expect Sutton to be better. Here are my updated rankings, and I have them both in the 70s. So let's get into the draft. We'll keep talking about it. We'll get into the first draft of the day. Let me go to the big board. I'm going to count it down. Entering in 10 seconds. Entering in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Enter. All right, we are waiting on 3. Let me check in with chat. We got Mike Robin here, best show in the business. Appreciate that, Mike. We got Who Heems in here. I was on with Who Heems yesterday afternoon after my show. We talked a little bit about this Waddle trade, but also talked about different backfields and how they're split up and what to kind of expect. And it's very tough with so many changes this offseason, not just backs moving, but new offense coordinators, new coaches. So a lot to change, but I think we covered a number of teams pretty well that are kind of interesting debates. We got Meg checking in. We got Hartman in here. Waddle to 28. Yeah, not that high. I have the third pick. Let's see. I don't recognize any. I recognize some names like AQ Fresh and a couple others. But let me know if you're in chat in here. And if so, good luck to everyone. How are we sure that's Steve's sister in the chat? And yeah, Meg on time. That is impressive. Meg posting my rankings for our Substack. You can check out our Substack 1 week free and get everything from there for a one-time payment for an entire year beyond that. Mike saying on time was wise question. Speaking of Mike, and I still need to do this, but Mike has set up in our Discord a March Madness bracket. So make sure you join our Discord. It's completely free. And let me take it here. But our Discord is completely free, and you can join Mike's bracket, which is free. And then, the winner, we're going to do a draft together. So, that can be a lot of fun. Don't forget this. I won't forget to discuss that. But I figured we get into a draft and kind of go with it there. And yes, Bruni is on Huhaim's stream later today. That should be a lot of fun. Looking forward to that. Herbert and Hertz right now seem like good prices to me. I agree. Aiden, Steve is back. Appreciate you, Aiden. All right, let's bring up the board. And yeah, I think, we're not there yet to the quarterbacks, but I wanted to discuss it as they come off the board and what we can see. I will tell you one guy that I am going to talk about. I just wrote an article that should be on Substack later today. Top free agents who, got good landing spots and are now presenting as really great values. And I think Kyler is 100%. Kind of my thesis of it is Kyler, and I've said this before, Kyler's actually maintained a really strong points per game average. He's just missed some games these last couple of years. Not all due to his fault. Like he was truly shut down last year. He could have come back, probably would have, maybe would have hurt McBride slightly, but probably Kyler's numbers would have been pretty good in that situation. But the other thing with Kyler is, he was just in an offense that didn't fit him these last 3 years. Terrible offensive line. Weapons were much more questionable. This past year was the best, and Kyler just didn't get a chance to experience that too much with the Michael Wilson breakout and all that. Now he goes to the Vikings. His weapons are not I would say top tier. I mean, Justin Jefferson's top tier, but it's just kind of Addison, Hawkinson, and a little bit of Aaron Jones, but they're good. They're good, and I think they likely keep adding to him. Maybe Vikings add a veteran receiver, maybe they draft a rookie early. But the other two things is Kevin O'Connell is just a great fit for Kyler. O'Connell loves taking deep, having a big chunk of deep passing game as part of his offense, taking deep shots, and Kyler can do that with anyone. On top of that, the Vikings offensive line, it needs to stay healthy, but on paper is just vastly superior to anything the Cardinals have trotted out Kyler's entire career. We need Dearsall, we need O'Neal to stay healthy. Some of the other guys. Let's take Chase Brown. But there's just no question we should see a big upgrade from offensive line. Even if it's the Vikings the last couple of years, like they started out good, but injuries piled up for them. They're still probably better than the Cardinals offensive line. So I just think it's upgrades across the board for Kyler. And the reality is Kyler has a legitimate outcome to have a career year for him at the lowest price we've ever drafted him. So I think that's something I'm going to be very cognizant of. I know I could get hurt again with Kyler, but the upside case is just too high. And if he remains in this current ADP range, even he's moved up considerably, but even if he remains in this current ADP range, it's going to be hard for me not to take him. Now here, I won't take Josh Allen. I like Josh Allen. I think it's a fair click. But I just don't need to be overboard. And the only thing working against Josh Allen right now, I think he's unquestionably, the best and safest quarterback one. But it's just Lamar goes, 20 picks later, and sometimes it's more like 25. So it's like you get 2 rounds of value on Lamar. Like my rankings separate them by a round, so that would be double the value. And my rankings are definitely different here. Like I have May and Burrow and Caleb all above Jaden Daniels. That's not how it is towards ADP. I think they're close. Don't get me wrong, but I just I prefer May, Burrow, and Caleb to Daniels. I think Hurts and Daniels are essentially neck and neck. I think you could go either way. But then this next year is where it gets, I think, really interesting when you get to the 70s. And a lot of times, 1 or 2 of these guys are falling to the 80s. But Herbert, Lawrence, Dak, these are 3 top-tier offenses we should expect. Jackson Dart, not the biggest Matt Nagy fan, but we saw the upside. We saw the spike week. We saw the potential. He's getting Malik Neighbors back. They added Likely. We'll see what they continue to do, but very, very promising for Jackson Dart year 2. Of course, Bo Nix, he is the biggest winner of the Jalen Waddle trade. We can, argue back and forth about, what it means for Sutton, what it means for Waddle, what it means for the other tertiary receivers. But Bo Nix is now just loaded with weapons. Davis Webb taking over the play calling. I assume it's going to be a lot of similar concepts to Sean Payton, which is a good thing. Bo Nix had the foot injury, but should be fine. So I'm fully expecting him to be good to go. And the difference, the foot injury, I don't think will limit Bo Nix's rushing. One concern I have with Mahomes, I like Mahomes, but why I'm behind him versus ADP is the rushing. This is a guy who, and it's not just these last 4 years where, 422, 307, et cetera, down the line. We're talking even this year with no touchdowns. That's 38 points that he got from the rushing department. In many years, it's much higher than that because we're adding touchdowns here. And it goes even for, well below that. His entire career has been 300 plus rushing yards, generally at least 2 touchdowns, more likely 3, 4, 5, I think is tied for his max, but I just don't think we're going to see that next year from him. He'll still probably scramble for maybe 100, 150 yards, but that's essentially half. And I think touchdowns could be I think he's much more live to be 0 to or 1 touchdown versus 3 or 4. So let's go here. Won't take Lamar here. I think I will go. Mike Evans. He's another big free agent winner to me. We just, as much as I like Baker and as much as I, like what the Bucs have done, he just goes from a much better offensive system, particularly from what it was last year. Obviously it was better with Liam Cohen prior to that. And let's see if we get Lamar to 51. So I think I'll take him. Yeah, like this range, like these running backs all have very much an upside case, but also a downside case. So let me take Lamar here. His upside case is as high as it gets. And like just MVP level quarterback, getting him almost, where did Josh Allen go this draft? Josh Allen went 32. So still 20, essentially 20 spots later. That feels good. That feels good having that gap. I think they're the clear 1-2. Like I said, I have about a 10 spot difference between them. But I think most people probably think it's closer, like a half a round difference. So getting them 20 pick difference, I think, is a value. Let me get back to chat. Yeah, Bernie's on with Who Heems. I believe that's and who he's posting chat. I think that's at 5, right? Big board with Steve. Yep. Something I want to look into more is major difference between week 14 advance rates and what ended up winning, as Purdy was just as bad as Lamar and Jaden during the regular season, but you kind of needed them to win. Yeah. And, that is the thing. Purdy, he missed 8 games this past year, but he got healthy, and he not only got healthy, but played at his highest level. One of the issues with Lamar and Jaden is when, Jaden eventually got shut down, but because he kept getting injured. But every time he came back, he just wasn't looking good. He seemed like a shell of himself. And Lamar had long stretches of that, when he came back as well. He had like his first game back against the Dolphins was really good. But then it was a long stretch before he had another really good game. And then he had a couple of good games at the very end. But it was, too low, too late. And one was week 18. No, was it week 18? Week 18 against the Steelers, where he had a really good game. So it is a concern. I don't know how well you can predict that, but it was the difference of Purdy being ready and able to come back at full tilt, essentially, was huge. And he played, and that's just why I'm so bullish on the 49ers, because you look at where their production was, and yes, CMC was amazing last year as a complete player. It's not like he was breaking off 60-yard runs. He was having to grind out for everything, rushing and receiving. So let's see here, coming up here at 70. And this is where I put Sutton at 70. I'll probably see if I could let him fall a little bit. I have a good chunk of Sutton, and I do think in most cases he's going to fall back. Tyson goes. I'll just take Ramondre. I think roughly this is where he should go, and I need a second running back. Receivers are kind of a flat tier. Like, I'm fine with any of these guys coming up. So Sutton does go there. That's fine. Don't have a lot of Parker Washington. As you can see, I'm not very high on him. I don't know why DK Metcalf has fallen to this point. I know Pittman's there. They're always going to bring in somebody that was unquestionable. I think Pittman works well to complement Metcalf quite a bit. So I think it's actually a positive for him. But back to the 49ers side of things, they were a top 10 scoring team, top 5 is, I think, 5 in scoring, 10 in yards. And that's with Purdy missing 8 games, all the missed games of Kittle, Pearsall, Juwan Jennings, etc., just down the list. And, we're now adding Evans to this offense. Purdy stays healthy. He's a really good quarterback. I think people still kind of think of him as this Mr. Irrelevant. And for his first year with the 49ers, it was more like, just be a game manager. Just don't be bad. We can win with our defense. We can win with, some of our key offensive weapons. But last year, especially, many of those weapons were missing time or not 100%. And Purdy was absolutely a very good quarterback. So I like the upside here for Evans quite a bit. We got Peppertoni in here. Aiden's question, Mike, it's in Discord. Yeah. Good to see Peppertoni. We got Steven WC in here. Good to see you as well. Mike, telling you where it's at. Check our Discord. It is, should be a lot of fun. Let's go back to the chat. I have a few minutes. I think if you're ever to draft Kyler Murray, how you feel? It's definitely this year at ADP. Ceiling could be anything. Yeah, and that's my point. I'm sure there's some risk there. I do think the injury risk gets a little overblown because you look, the ACL was at the end of the year. He missed the last couple games that year, and then he missed the the first half of the next season. They were just very cautious with him. When he came back, he had multiple 20-point games, was still very productive in a point per game standpoint, was very productive the next season in a point per game standpoint. And even last year, would have, 5 games, but I think it was 18th or 19th in points per game. Well, I mean, that's probably his floor. And yeah, he would have missed some games last year due to injury, but he could have come back. That was a team decision to shut him down for as much as they did. So he could have ended up playing 10, 11 games last year, maybe even 12. That's not on him. That's on the team. It's kind of like knocking Daniel Jones for missing games down the stretch for the Giants the year before. That wasn't a him being injured thing. They were just uber cautious. So let's see here. I am going to try to double stack Purdy since I have both of his top weapons. Hopefully I can get him here. Yep. I don't, I'm not a huge double stack guy, but particularly when I think the offense is good, when I think the offense is going to be kind of condensed. I mean, they signed Christian Kirk. I think Evans and Pearsall are going to be the clear 1-2, particularly with George Kittle coming back from injury. McCaffrey's his own thing. But then getting Pearsall at value, Purdy, right past ADP, that feels good. It wouldn't be something I'd want to do a lot of reaching for or anything like that, to force double stacks. It's kind of my feeling on it. We got Greg in here. GM Gang, good to see you, Greg. We got Chad Candles. We got the Dolphins contingent in here. I haven't heard from you guys. How are you guys feeling about the Waddle deal? I think it's great for Waddle, and it's I'm going to a better team, but I honestly think it's great for the Dolphins. I think they did well to get a first plus. They got considerably more than the Bears got for DJ Moore. Those are very similar players in my book. Even if you prefer Waddle, it's not a drastic difference in terms of age, production profile, contract, etc. So I thought them getting a first plus is very, very strong for Miami. What are the odds that Kyler gets hurt and 9 rises like the Phoenix from the ashes? Oh boy. Yeah, I think that's about right. And you might have missed a 0 there, Bukowski. The Kyler getting hurt, if he could miss a couple games, that's always on the table. Rushing quarterbacks. With Josh Allen, knock on wood, his ability to stay healthy has been pretty insane when you consider, and even look at Bo Nix, getting hurt on a stupid little scramble at the end of the game to position, Mahomes. It's the quarterbacks who, you'd think a pocket passer is getting hit all the time, like a Matt Stafford, who has his own injury history, of course, gets hurt. But, guys who scramble around, whether it's to buy time, like Kyler's ACL, it was just a non-contact, it just happens. And let me see here. I need running back help. We'll go Jadarian Price. I still feel fairly confident in him as a second rounder. Maybe he's the Seahawks back. Quality potential outcomes there. Kyler misses, and in general, like Meg and I talk about this all the time, the number of quarterbacks that miss games is very high. Usually we're talking under half the league plays all 17 games. And even when you factor in like the guys who just miss week 18 due to being held out. We'll go Debo. I still think Debo gets a nice little landing spot. We'll see where it's at. Hopefully it's not back in San Francisco. I don't want 3 pieces here, spending that much capital on it. And I know maybe Debo falls back, but I just prefer Debo to Juwan Jennings. Casey Concepcion, the injury doesn't scare me too much. But I feel a nice veteran receiver here. Probably could have waited on him. But let's go back to the board here. Especially generous as I'm a Vikings fan. Well, I think the outlooks are good for Kyler and the Vikings. Like, are they going to win 14 games again like with Darnold? Maybe not. I mean, the North has gotten very, very good with the rise of the Bears as well. I completely agree. I think both Pittman and Metcalf can do very well, and especially if Aaron Rodgers is back, I think the Steelers are going to be a good offense. Like, very live to be a top 15 offense, maybe even crack top 10. That sounds crazy, but that is the history of Mike McCarthy. I understand generally his quarterback play has been far better, but yeah, I just think he can find a way, especially with 2 quality receivers like this. Good to see you, Devin. Appreciate the like. Bracket should be a lot of fun, Mike. Yeah, no, looking forward to it. AJ Dillon, a Panther, 1-year deal. I don't think it makes that situation too murky. So that's great news for Chuba and Jonathan Brooks at this point. Still obviously could add a lot more because I'm sure that was essentially league minimum. Chad saying, I'm thrilled. Visiting more assets, starting over. Absolutely. I said at the top, and this I know Dolphins fans would probably balk at a bit more, but I think they should trade a chain. If you get good value, like somewhere in the neighborhood of the Christian McCaffrey deal, that was the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th round pick, all late round picks, late in those respective rounds. So equivalency, it was like a late first, essentially, honestly, it was like a 1st and a 6th, you could say. Maybe you could justify it like a 1st and a 5th. If you get somewhere in that ballpark, whether it's like a team like Seattle giving up their 1st this year, or like a 2nd and a 3rd, or somebody giving up that, like I mentioned, Washington's future picks. I think the Dolphins should consider that. All right, let me take a tight end here. I'll go Kelsey. And ideally, I can get Andrews back to stack with Lamar here. As much as I like Brenton Strange, I do quite a bit. The Andrews stack is just more preferable. And I want to be overweighted Kelsey. When we're still gaining him in the 140s, I just think this price is going to keep evaporating. Kelsey will eventually, even pre-draft, be in the late 120s. So I still feel like I'm just getting real value here by getting him at 142. We got Paul checking in. Hey, Steve, to answer your poll, I'm usually drafting 3+ quarterbacks with 20-round drafts, but the 3rd is never in the top 12 rounds, so 2 quarterback at heart. Yeah, I mean, generally like this, I think, and this 12th, 13th is where the quarterback market kind of dies off now. So I do plenty where I take my 3rd in this, I should say more like 11th through 13th. Ideally, I wish it was in the 13th round, but A lot of times you have to take these guys like Darnold, Stroud, Young, Ward. Mendoza, I honestly feel less good about now. Just with potential that he could sit half a year. Not that there's not value there. We just saw this with Tyler Shuck. Sam Sherman, $2 million with a quarterback who didn't play the first half of the year. But I just think that, we, like Tyler Shuck, we were taking 18th round last year, 17th, 18th round post-draft. Now we know where Mendoza is going, so there's no question about that. But if that's his outcome, he should be going in. And same with Drake May a couple years ago. Even though he went third overall, there's a lot of reports that Jacoby Brissett would start the year. And that was less than half a year. And, May was going like 16th, 17th round. So I would just like to see Mendoza fall a little bit more if that ends up being the outcome for him. Steve just cursed Josh Allen, update your ranks. We got Hulk checking in. Good to see you. And then I'm coming up in 3 picks. I need some running backs. Might take an Emmett Johnson share if he's still there. I have been, he's not. I haven't been taking him much recently. I think I'm going to go Kayshawn here. I'm going to go just 7 receivers. I think I'm going to go 7 running backs. I'll be done at receiver. I'm going to take Chig. As you can see, I have him ranked 153. So this feels like good value. The way I look at Chig, he should get a playing time upgrade, a massive quarterback upgrade, an offense upgrade. And currently right now, if the season started today, he'd be Washington's number 2 weapon. So while he'll still, he won't be like a true full-time tight end, like a Laporta or any, the top guys. But he should get more work previously. He's coming off a year with career highs at targets, catches, yards. Touchdowns are more of an issue, but I think they can materialize more with Washington. Flyfish, heavily weighted 3 quarterback with Ward overwhelmingly being the 3rd. I'm going to start fiddling with 2 elite options more, though, to leverage off the 3 meta. Yeah, I get that. I'm undecided on what to do. Once around 18 drafts are back, I'm usually 2 quarterback drafter, 1 early, 1 middle. But the top quarterbacks are still going later than usual. I'm inclined to tack on a 3rd late. Yeah, I think it will be interesting to see. And, unfortunately, when we get, I was hoping we'd have more clarity and certainty, and we still could, before this. Maybe the Cardinals make it clear. Maybe they sign Kirk Cousins and kind of announce he's going to be the starter, or something along those lines. But right now, we still unfortunately have too many teams with uncertain quarterback situations. And unfortunately, the Raiders are one of them. I think we know Mendoza will be there for, should be there barring injury for playoff weeks. I don't think he gets Carson Palmer shut down for the entire year as the top overall pick. But I think Mendoza, you clearly have to be taken in 3 quarterback builds. And we still, I think, have uncertainty for the Cards, uncertainty some with the Falcons. Probably that's a split situation with Tua and Penix. Uncertainty with the Browns for sure. And maybe uncertainty with the Jets. It's probably Geno. There was other talk of them bringing in another veteran. So maybe if they bring in another veteran, maybe it's not fully Geno. And then, of course, uncertainty still with the Steelers until, the Rodgers decision domino falls. So still a little bit of uncertainty at the position, which isn't great. But some of that. I am expecting at least the Rodgers situation to play itself out before the draft. So I'll take Alvin Kamara. I haven't really heard much of the situation. I don't expect him to retire. There's some talk teams might try and trade for him. I think with how they push the money back in his contract, they probably just keep him, and he probably just is a good third down back now. Good like change, him and so weird saying Travis A-Chain, but I believe that's how it's pronounced now. But I think their skill sets are very similar to one another, so it can be it's not a compliment, but it'll be a 1v1, and maybe I'll take Brian Robinson. I need RB help, and maybe that turns into a kind of like a 2-for-1 situation, kind of like 2 drives to 1 drive sort of mentality. I could see that. In which case, if that's what Kamara is getting, 190 is a steal. I kind of agree, Bukowski. I don't think they're going to say we're open for business, because then teams are going to lowball them. I mentioned this yesterday. I found it very interesting about Waddle, Moore, and Michael Pittman, all very similar, like productive receivers. Like none are top 10, none are top 15 receivers. I don't even know if anyone would consider them a true top 20 receiver, but all kind of in that next tier, right? And all relatively the same age, all relatively the same production, all relatively the same contracts, and they went for 3 vastly different prices. I think Waddle got the most because the Dolphins didn't make it clear they were open for business in trading him. I'm sure teams knew, but and I do think Waddle has that speed skill set that teams crave. But it just shocks me that Michael Pittman, we're talking about like 20 pick difference between the late 6th and early 7th round pick. DJ Moore, it was, what was it, a second for Moore in a 4th or Moore in a 5th? So roughly like early 3rd round value. And with this, even though with the pick flip, the picks in the 4th round flipping, it's essentially a late 1st and a late 3rd, and you drop a couple, 15, 20 spots in the 4th round. That's way better value than Moore or Pittman. So I do think the Dolphins did very well in that department. And I think because like the Bears, you kind of knew the Bears had to trade more, just given where they were at with their other investments at wide receiver and their team need of freeing up money. The Colts, because they gave Pierce the big contract and Daniel Jones, they were just up against the wall money financially. And so, Steelers took serious advantage there. And even the Bills, even if you'd say Jalen Waddle is definitely a better receiver than DJ Moore, essentially a late 2nd versus a late 1st, I don't know. I think I'd take more in the better and not giving it up as much. Let me do Aaron Rodgers for this build. And I go back to running back. So I think the same for A-Chain. Like, if teams think you're desperate to trade them, they're going to lowball you. Where, try and play off a team who's desperate for a star running back, like Washington, like Seattle. There you might get a pretty good return. So I will make this pick and get back to chat. And I will take Ollie Gordon. I think even if A-Chan stays, Gordon's a fine pick in this range. Of course, if he were to leave, he's a fantastic pick. So much to happen still. Draft, training camp, having 3rd feels good. Being more advanced rate focused as opposed to week 17, all that matters. Got to get there and more shots on the net. Exactly. And that's been Meg and I's philosophy. I think people, yes, week 17 has all the money, but you have 0 chance of that money if you don't get there. And an extra zero chance of that money if you don't even make the playoff. You know what I mean? Like I always say, you have to walk before you can run, and to me, it's the regular season. It's a grind. It's 14 weeks. You need to be set up for. It's only 2 of 12. So yes, something like BBM, even this, the 1 of 10s or the 1 of 13, 1 of 16, tougher advance rates in the next 2 rounds, but it's still like, I think the grind of finishing in top 2 over 14 weeks is very, very tough. You know, it can, as I like to say, I don't think you can necessarily win a playoff spot in 1 week, but you can lose one. Now, right now, we don't know things like buys and stuff like that, but like when people take 2 quarterbacks and they have the same buy and taking a stone 0, that can make you miss out on the playoffs, just full stop. Or you load up on 2 teams from the same buy, and you know, you end up with 2, even if you take a third quarterback, 2 of your top 3 quarterbacks, 3 of your top 5 receivers, your top tight end, your second running back all on the same buy, and you have a 60-point week. That might be enough to tank your entire year. So just something I'm always cognizant of and want to keep in mind. We should prioritize advancing to the playoffs because so many things can then change in the playoffs. And sometimes it's us. Sometimes we end up with the dead team in the playoffs. You limp into the playoffs and you're missing, 3 of your top weapons, and you almost have no chance. So yeah, you kind of get your money back, whatever. But sometimes it's, we just don't know what the pod luck will end up being in the playoffs. So sometimes even a marginal team might get to the semifinals, and then that team, because a couple guys just spike at the right time, can get to the finals, and then your ROI is massively improved. We just don't know. So I like to build for what we do know, and that's the regular season portion of it. Like I think that's far more predictive, particularly once we get buys and full strength of schedule, stuff like that. But that's generally how I feel is building to get out of your pod should be your first priority. Because if you can't do that, nothing else matters. You know what? Here, I will, the 7RB build, let's handcuff the Dolphins running backs. I think there's a 5 to 10% chance A-Chain gets traded, but if so, then this team is just in fuego. And if not, like, one of them probably has decent usage throughout the year, and I just kind of need, some more production at the running back position here. So I'll catch up in chat, then I will review my team. I didn't see anyone else in this draft, but if so, let me know. Hulk saying, give me Kelsey over Kincaid. Yeah, I think that's where post-draft, once the BBM launches, I think Kelsey will settle in around the pick 100 range, somewhat depending on what Kansas City does. If they go out and draft 2 receivers or something like that, maybe stays in the 120 range. But I agree. I think Kelsey will be somewhere, pick 90 to 110 post BBM. We got Emo Cowboy in here. Howdy, Steve. Hope you're doing well, Emo. Sam and Furry used 3 quarterbacks. Liam got done with 1. Yeah. And there's also, and this is not a knock on Liam, but it was just a different ball game back then. Like, there's so much more content out there. There's so many more people playing. The field size has gotten bigger. Last 3 years, it's been essentially the same. But those first couple of years, and again, not knocking like Herzig or Liam, but it was just a different game. I really think it was. I think I'm the only person that doesn't think Mendoza's going at the 1. Good to see quid pro quo. Look, they're not like fully announcing it yet, but it would have to take just the most massive of trades, I think, to get the Raiders to not take Mendoza. Could some team offer it? Sure. Jets would probably be the most likely, given that they have future picks next year as well. I mean, they could offer 4 first rounders and then some, and then maybe the Raiders have to at least think about it, because there's very few people worth 4 first rounders, but it would have to take more than an RG3 trade for it to occur. Yeah, Liam won a much smaller contest, and Josh Allen is QB1. And yeah, exactly. People were just drafting differently. Content was out there, just not as many people. So just for a lot of reasons, it was still a big contest, but it was much more equivalent to, say, a puppy in terms of field size and things of that nature. And I want to say the playoffs then were at, I think, 1 of 12. Don't fully quote, like, both rounds. So even better, not this 1 of 13, 1 of 16 stuff. FK saying, well, the top quarterbacks may go a little later than usual. A lot of the mid-tier go higher than they should, which still judged me towards two quarterbacks and trying to beat my opponents at running back and wide receiver. I can get that to an extent. I do think that mid-tier is very packed. And so, yes, like the total quantity of quarterbacks going before pick 120, in the top 10 rounds is pretty high. I think, again, a lot of that has to do with so much uncertainty with, 3, 4, 5 teams. Because last year we kind of had uncertainty with 3 teams, Browns, Giants, and Saints. Colts, you could say as well. I think it was fairly clear once they signed Daniel Jones, the direction should be going. So worst, you had 4 teams that you'd say you were uncertain with. Kind of when it became clear Cam Ward was going to be the one in Tennessee. Now, the Mendoza Raiders, if he's not fully starting, that makes that a little uncertain. Like I said, there's about 4 or 5 teams that could get clarified a bit when Rodgers signs. So that, I think, could change the ADPs a little bit. And yeah, I do expect the ADPs to continue to change. If I don't leave the first round without 3 quarterbacks, I consider my existence on earth a failure. The Gilbert Arenas strategy. Any third option, 3 elite quarterbacks, gritty pilled. Hey, I think those can sometimes be fun. And why I think they, can be weaker overall in the playoffs by dominating the quarterback scoring. Quarterbacks still score the most points. And yes, I understand you're taking 2 zeros. And if you're taking them too early, you're taking zeros from early positions, but we see people do that by taking 5 wide receivers in a row. You're guaranteed to be taking a 0. Just, with that fifth, one of those 5 is not kind of on your lineup every week. Same taking 4 running backs in a row, etc. So those kind of builds to bully quarterback. It is still the highest scoring position. So I actually think it's best when you don't necessarily take like Allen or Lamar, and kind of like, let's give an example from this draft, just since we have a little bit of time and everything. But if somebody went, let's find a good one. A guy in the 1 hole, Hurts, Prescott, if he had added, Goff or Purdy here, or even Kyler, so 3 quarterbacks in a row, already 2 guys with plenty of upside and potential. But this is now the lineup. The problem is, again, this 3 teams are advancing, but in general, 2 teams are advancing. And if Allen and Lamar are 1-2 quarterbacks, everyone has to try and challenge them at quarterback points. The best way to do that is with 2 or 3 good ones to just get a combo that's better than the Allen plus something combo. And in a lot of cases, even in this, people who take Allen or Lamar only stop at 2. So they are lowering their floor a little bit. Not just the bye week, but in general, even the best quarterbacks usually have 2 to 4 weeks where they're underperforming points. Are there some exceptions to that in years past? Absolutely. But in general, you're going to have, 2 to 4 games where Josh Allen gets 14, 15 points, or Lamar gets 14, 15 points, even when they're at their, essentially at near their peak. Like 2 years ago, Lamar, I think, only had like 2 games under 20 points. That's kind of the exception. And so, a 24-point Jared Goff game could end up being 9-point value over a Josh Allen. So those types of things. I do think there's, you worry about your total draft capital and all that. And I think it also depends on like how you're drafting. Like, are you drafting more certainty in your top positions? Because if so, then I think you feel better about using those middle rounds to really load up quarterback. You're drafting guys like somebody like Rashee Rice, who's a big question mark, or even guys like a Travion Henderson or RJ Harvey, an Ibuka, who maybe he's the one, maybe he's the two. Waddle, I think, is just being overdrafted now. But if you're drafting guys who are meeting or exceeding their current ADPs, and when I mean that, I mean where their ranks are. Like if end of the year, Jalen Waddle is still a good player, but it was worth pick 65, then I wouldn't be trying to load up at quarterback, because your only way to advance is to catch up at wide receiver, because you kind of set yourself back a little bit. Same with any of these guys, whether it's due to injury, whether it's due to poor performance, whatever the case may be. So if you're pretty solid with your drafting early, then I think it can allow you the luxury to get like 3 good quarterbacks. What mid-tier quarterbacks are overpriced? They don't all go in the whole wide receiver to wasteland. This is really you're giving up passing over Jaden Reeds for quarterback, in my opinion. That's kind of how I'm at. Like, and that just going back to it, and not sure exactly where FK was talking about, but this like 9th through 11th round, there's some receivers who I think are fine. Worthy, I think, is fine. Dobbs, Pittman. Then after that, it's just very, very thin. Like I pulled up Debo, didn't even have to. It's just very thin these next few rounds. And taking Stafford and Kyler, Love, Purdy, etc. over these guys, and these running backs, none of them feel great. Could J.K. Dobbins end up being a really good pick? Yeah. But most of these guys, like Corm, I think he's very likely to be worthy of the 110 pick. But his upside is to be worthy of the 90th pick. Like, he's not going to be a home run pick, where somebody like a Kyler, a Willis, even a Brock Purdy can be a home run pick. Brock Purdy could end up as quarterback 5, quarterback 6. We saw that with Stafford last year. We've seen that with Goff in the years past. We've seen that with Baker in the years past. So even Jordan Love, who helped a guy win BBM a couple years ago. So that is kind of how I look at it. But overall, obviously, I want to mix up things. We got Rai Tai in here. Good to see you. Don't agree with you on any of that. It's very contrarian to think that the Raiders are not going to take Mendoza. But hey, stranger things have happened. I mean, I guess I'd be curious to hear Quid's why he thinks that. Like, does he think somebody just comes in over the top with a trade? Like, to me, that's the only way it happens. And I would put that at, under 5% chance. I don't think the Raiders are taking another player over Fernando Mendoza. But, appreciate the thoughts, Quid. Being 20-1 on a couple of bets I've made, and it's the Raiders after all. Pretty in on 2 quarterbacks for round 10. Triple elite quarterback is live. Don't sleep. Totally agree. I mean, I think it definitely is right now on the big board when there's so much, like, if you can hit on these lower, particularly like these lower receivers and tight ends, who are being drafted with uncertainty, a few of the running backs, like I could have ended up with Alvin Kamara, who ends up being worthy of like if he's like good Austin Eckler, if that's his role next year, that's worth pick 130. If Brian Robinson Jr. goes to a good space, it could be worth another like pick 120, pick 130. So yeah, if I hit on those kind of things, not that I went 3 elite quarterbacks, but that's the kind of way that it can pay off. Is if you hit on some of these things, like some of these tight ends are just, I think, vastly undervalued, particularly like Schultz and Hawkinson. Now that we know that they're back, a couple of these receivers, Calvin Ridley might end up being good this year. I don't know if I feel great about that, but it could happen. Jalen Naylor absolutely could return a ton of value this year. Jeremy Bernard, like probably early mid-second round rookie in the right landing spot, could hit the ground running, have a really good year. So right now, with so much uncertainty, having the certainty at the quarterback position can be an advantage. For me, it's that Darnold, Young, Ward, Stroud grouping. I feel like an overpay for assumed security. I agree that it's a bit of an overpay, not necessarily with Darnold. He's kind of slid back some, but got a good group of receivers, good offensive line. Yeah, I think he can be fine. I don't know if I'd say assumed security. I think the security is pretty strong with all those, with maybe the exception of Bryce Young. And there can just be a lot of fantasy points from those kind of players, though. Lamar, Metcalf versus Herbert, Waddle. Give me Lamar. I mean, sure, but that's my point. Is like, don't take Waddle there. Like, take Mike Evans. What does Herbert Evans feel like? Like, that feels pretty good. Ward feels very secure. We could upside cost, improved OC. I guess it should be worried about Dable's actually smitten with Levis. Who aims? Aiden already beat you, but yeah, AJ Dillon to the moon, who's in incredible shape. No, it's good news for Jonathan Brooks for sure. Raider, no, they're not taking Caleb Downs first overall. Again, some sort of trade back happens. There's just no way they're going that. Sorry, I just don't see that happening. Game Tight asking, do you expect a pre-draft Superflex contest on UD? There was a pre-draft Superflex a couple years ago. It hasn't been since. I do expect more pre-draft contests, probably not a Superflex contest. So I do expect more, but just not Superflex. I would imagine betting odds from those Raiders, those odds represent near locks. Yeah. Brooks gets a tank in front of him. I don't think it's likely, but Ward could be benched for a few games in year 2 for poor play like Young was. It's more that I think later quarterbacks are just slightly equal to Ward in points. Like, look, I do think if Aaron Rodgers is back, he is just completely undervalued, but he will start to move up. Like I said, I think if he comes back, I think that some of those other guys like Ward, Stroud start to fall down a little bit. Kate Otten is still free. I think Ward's better, but I do agree. Like, if we know Rodgers is playing, Rodgers is a better pick. If we know Geno's going to get 17 games, Geno's a better pick because you're getting him a couple rounds later. We got Fantasy Football Garage in here. Good to see you. Back to work. Well, appreciate you checking in. I feel like Ward is super safe, could take a big step forward and is cheap. That's where I'm at with Ward. Like, I like that they keep adding, or it seems like they're adding offensive weapons. I'm relatively bullish on Ward. FK saying, I'm just glad there isn't consensus in a top-heavy PvP game. Agreed. Paul, that's fair. I think it's really unlikely. Ward also has real rushing ability we haven't seen maximized yet. That's where I'm at also. I would expect him to not putting up 500 yards or anything like that, but 300, 350, kind of what I said Mahomes has done in the past. Like, Mahomes historically has been 300 to 400 yards. I think that'll be the range that Cam Ward's in. Wondering if Rodgers will come back now. Yeah, it's getting there. But insert Kirk Cousins there. Like whoever ends up going to the Steelers will add certainty and would be a great, late round pick and definitely better than like that tier guy, the Bryce Youngs and stuff like that. To me, it feels like young Warren Darnold is some of the best value board if you don't hit quarterback early. So if you don't hit quarterback early, you absolutely should be taking multiple of those guys. Like you need 3 in that window. Like I don't think you're gonna likely contend with young Geno and Shador Sanders. I feel like Rodgers' new ceiling is like a 20-point game at max. I really don't see him averaging more than 12 to 15 a game. That's why he's a very hard click. So I don't know if I fully agree with that. Like you look at him last year, I think he had 2 20-point games last year. Let me just bring it up real quick. And that was in just such an ultra conservative offense. And then the hand issue was also, a factor late. So Aaron Rodgers, he had 25 points week 1, he had 24.6 week 7, and then a 20-point game after that, week 14. So 3 20-point games, 2, kind of in the 25 range. Like, do I think he's dealing 30? No. I know he had one with the Jets. But I think we could have like 4 or 5 20 to 25-point games is kind of where I see Rodgers. And then last year, his like quote unquote floor was more like, or general expected was more like 12-ish points. I think that, his more average games are, 15 to 17 points. Can we also get this dude some likes? Saying Tinder people, you can handle it without the shame. Appreciate you, Mike. We will get into another draft. Just quickly looking at my team, went with Lamar, Purdy, and Rodgers. Hopefully Rodgers is back. Chase Brown, Ramondre Stevenson, Jadarian Price, Alvin Kamara, Brian Robinson, and then the double Dolphins running back. Thinner running back that I like. I do like the Brown-Stevenson combo up top. We'll obviously need good situations for kind of the rest of these guys for this to pan out. But Puka, Olave, Mike Evans, DK Metcalf, Ricky Pearsall, 5 in the top 100, then Debo. I pulled him up just because I wanted more of the veteran certainty there. And then Kayshon Boutte as well. Tight end room, Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews, and Chig Okonkwo. Really like that tight end room. I think there's a lot of upside, surplus value there. So let's get in another draft. If you are just joining, don't forget to hit the like button. Like Mike just said, we appreciate you. As always, if you're not subscribed yet, please subscribe. We're on the way to 1,000 subs. We want to get it up there. We want to get it to a 24-hour live stream. We're excited for everything we have, getting ready for the BBM season. We also have the free Discord. The link is in the description below, and our Substack. You can check that out as well. Let's get into the next draft. I'm going to count it down, and I'm almost assuredly missed a couple picks in baseball while I was talking, because that is now on an hour clock, and that is not good right now. So let's count this down first. Entering in 10 seconds, entering 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, enter. So just started the room, plenty of room. Sorry if anyone jumped in early. Trying to manage the count. And let's make some baseball picks so I'm not totally killing these teams. I know I'm in a couple of slows with like FK, so he's probably getting some plus EV here. All right, still waiting on 5. kicks in here. Thanks for the reminder. I have some slows on and MLB on drafters. FK, I'm down to only 2 slows. Very lucky. And 5 dingers left to be done. Nice. I'm gonna do a couple more dingers, but definitely not maxing. Speaking of drafters, I need to check my slows there. I think I have one more drafters team to do for their main contest. That's about to close within like a week, probably maybe through the weekend. So if you are doing drafters, I'd jump in now, get whatever level you can get up to, because there's like less than 1,000 drafts to go for their main contest. So still waiting on 4. How many slows are you cooking on drafters? Or Underdog? Hold on 1 second. Yeah. Let me count Underdog real quick. I have some football. Those I probably about 15 football, and it looks like this is a ballpark 45 slows still on baseball. It was just like very, very quick count. Not all dingers. Some were like the little limb and the bunt. So it's about 45 slows that I have still going on. Oh, you just finished your solo shot. Nice. I haven't done mine yet. I don't know when I'll do that. Because it's, I think the 23rd is the last day. So we have a few days. And solo shot, I don't think it's anywhere close to filling. But I do think that's a really good tournament. So wait on 2 more people. I keep wondering, once March Madness starts, once we get baseball kind of locked, if Underdog starts to drop some more pre-draft stuff for football, because some of it is they might not want to just push anything out as they're trying to build these other things. But so maybe next week we get something that I think would be fun. As I said before, like something like a $5, whether it's a 20 max, whether it's a 10 max, 5 max even, I think would do well, and actually I think would help the little board fill rates. I think if people knew that more stuff was coming out, they would fill the little board faster. So let's see, still waiting on 1. So I personally am not doing any of the college basketball. There's going to clearly be overlay there. So if anyone is doing college basketball, it closes at Thursday, so tomorrow at 11:30 Eastern, and it is only 56.7% filled. So if you're doing college basketball, there is definite overlay there. So we're in here. Game Tight is in the 1, FK in the 3, Hulk in the 4. I'm in the 9. Two Hames is in the 12. So this will be a very much friends and family draft. Good luck to everyone. Hopefully 3 of us are taking it down. If anyone else is in here, let me know. So yeah, baseball closes the 25th. So yeah, about a week to go. Oh, Greg's in 6. Oh, nice. I couldn't remember your name, Greg. So that's awesome. I'm all out of drafts on UD and I don't use other sites. I would do a better job managing next year, but boo-hoo. Well, Kelly, hopefully there are going to be, some other things released before we get to the draft. Dream says he thinks Bats listens. They don't have as many degens. They think 20 max is wrong. Always wrong. Yeah. I just don't understand why you went from 50 to 20 max. That didn't make a lot of sense. And it only makes sense if you're going to release more stuff. Because your total number of pre-draft ability line, and they don't even have the biggest board, the 250, which I kind of understand. Like that didn't fill either, and that is only a certain number of people are going to do that. Only a certain number of people are going to max it. So I get that, but to lower the little board, which filled quickly last year, and they did release the second one, that because they released it so late was an issue. I think it doesn't make sense to get less drafts out of people. Drafters has a $3 up if you want to degen more, Kelly. Yeah, no, the Drafters did just drop their $3 one because their big one's about to fill. And I need to start doing those now that I'm done with the Drafters. I'm doing almost all my Drafters slows, so I have like 120 Drafters slows going right now. DK $1.20 max is easy option. Absolutely. I would just live through you guys. Well, appreciate that, Kelly. Yeah, no, the Drafters, they just released that like 3 days ago, maybe. We'll take Ken Walker. Talked about this with Who Hames. At first, when Ken Walker signed there, I thought, okay, back half of the second round, like 19, 20, 21. But now I'm just more bullish. Like the upside is there. I think there are paths where he can be better than Love, Hampton, Barkley, Henry. I mean, all those are great options. I do think he's just more capable of getting in that range. Racing Little Board 2 was my best contest last year. RIP. Yeah, that was a fun one. Wall goes at 60 in drafters lobbies, which is wild because he's probably better in drafters. Though I don't know if he ends up with more catches than, I think that's up for debate. I think they both end up around low hundreds of targets, probably both around the 115, 120 target range. Maybe Waddle ends up with more catches. I think on DK, he's probably the best because he's, has some legit 100-yard upside, in the games where he catches that 50-yard strike. But, Waddle doesn't seem like his price has moved up the same as it has in UD. I feel he's the worst on UD because his touchdowns, I don't know if he cracks, his career high is 8 touchdowns, and I don't know if he gets there. Not impossible, but just that's probably a ceiling. $20 $20 max $1 DK is a good gateway drug. Yes. I still have a couple more to do there. And I'll do, I'm doing something at $10 there as well. I'm not going to max over there. Coming up here, 33 and 40, went running back start. McCaffrey and Walker, I like that. I think that's probably a more unique combination for me, just because, when I was taking Walker when he was going later, is generally more on this side of the board, on the left side of the board. So. All right, AJ Brown goes to Greg. And I'm going to go triple running back start. I think Kyron, as much as I like Higgins, Kyron's just projection. Like, it's just such an easy 225 points. I think that's like a low end if Kyron's healthy. And obviously the high end is more like 250, maybe even 260. It's just receivers here just aren't going to get that range. Higgins would be maybe the one exception. Maybe if everything breaks right for McConkey, he'd won 200 as a rookie. But it's just real tough for the receivers in this range to even come close to that. And then the next tier of running backs that we're talking about are generally going to struggle to get to 200 points. So then I feel like we're talking almost like a 1.5, 2 point per game gap between Kyron and like the next tier of running backs. The next tier of receivers, I think, is very flat. Don't have a ton of Mbuka. I think I'm going to prioritize Devonta. So. Website bugged, wanted Flowers. Huh. You went Garrett over Rice or Wilson. I know you're lower on Rice now, so I'm assuming it was Rice you wanted Flowers, but sorry about that. That is frustrating. Wilson at 5% raise. I click him a little. Yeah, I mean, we did talk. I was totally out on Garrett Wilson also. I do think Geno puts him live in this range. At least, is he my favorite click? No. I don't think there's a big ceiling above, where he's going. But I do think now he's live to at least pay off where he's going. A guy like Higgins, if he's healthy and Joe Burrow's healthy, he can outscore, Nico Collins and Drake London. That's the upside and outcome that he has. Garrett Wilson, I just don't see that. Devonta Smith, definitely if AJ Brown's gone. But just in general, there's a lot of buzz that and for the first 2/3 of the year, they were kind of prioritizing Smith last year over Brown. And then Brown complained, and we saw some things change down the stretch. Not necessarily for the team's overall health. But I just think, I do in general just think the Philly offense is going to be really good this year. When I can, not everyone fits this bill, but when I can, these first 3-4 rounds, I want guys from good teams just because their upside case is going to be just naturally higher there. Oh boy, I might do Lamar again. I mean, falling to 57. All right. Now I wish I took Flowers over Devonta Smith. This is exactly where I wanted to say, yeah. I'm not, I'm not the biggest Zay fan, just because I think he's very likely to hit his value, particularly if you're getting him lower 40s. I question the ceiling case. I know he finished incredibly strong last year, but he was a guy who weeks 1 through 14 wasn't getting you to the playoffs, but kind of similar to Purdy, just without injury factor. He was a guy you needed in the postseason a bit, and also his numbers are skewed because his week 18 was so insane. So DJ Moore. Let's go my guy Jordan Tyson. I'm just super bullish on him. It's mid 60s. He's already fallen thumb when this contest opened. I think he has a chance to be wide receiver 1 from this class. Not that he'll be drafted that way, but he has the ability to be the top receiver from this class for sure. Lamar and Loveland seem to fall recently. Yeah, I've definitely been noticing with Lamar. Can't say I've noticed as much with Loveland, because it seemed like right after the DJ Moore trade, he went up. Maybe these last couple of days he's been coming back down. I just haven't noticed it as much. I do like that. The further back that you can get top tier tight ends, the better, just because the opportunity cost of taking them is lessened. So Loveland here went 41. Yeah, I would love to see Loveland more. I mean, Loveland at 50 would be an ultimate smash. Though still Mike Evans, that's just such a great pick. I know we're paying for the injury. But Evans, his ADP is Hulk gun rate at ADP, and he is going as wide receiver 26. If he's anywhere remotely healthy, he is going to destroy that value. 2 years ago, he missed 3.5 games and finished as wide receiver 9, both in points per game and total points. So, yeah, even missing some time, he could absolutely smash that value. Tyson super live to go to Baltimore also. That's very true. I think he's a perfect fit for them. 150s in back-to-back drafts, but I was stuck at the 10-11 spot. Yeah, I hate when that happens. When you see a guy falling who you really like, it's great value, but he's got no chance to come back to you. This is just not my fun range. I take a lot of Parker Washington. I will just take Trevor Lawrence. Maybe if Parker Washington comes back, be interested. Or Jacoby Myers. So it feels like there's 2 outs, and of course Strange is a later option. My problem with Parker Washington is I just think Myers is a better player. And I don't get the round of ADP difference between the two. Good GAB in here. Smash that like. Appreciate that. Thank you, GAB. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're having a good day. So Washington goes, but I get Jacoby Myers, who I'm fine with. Like I said, I think he's the better receiver of the two. So I get a stack here. Will say most of my Lawrence teams are Myers and or Strange. Don't have near as much with Thomas or definitely not Parker Washington. So I do need to start changing that up a little bit, I feel. But let's go back to the board here. So through 7 rounds into the 8th, well, I'll go from the back end, and Huheim's is 125. He said, I think Bats might be in here, 233. I'm seeing a 233. Mooncat, Greg is at 233. Hulk just made his 8th round pick. He's at 134. And then we have FK and Game Tight on the clock, about to be on the clock. FK goes Godwin, so he's 1151. With Henry as his anchor. It's a pretty damn good anchor. Bats is in here. Good to see you. Appreciate that. Thank you for jumping in. Did my guy Shador make the list? Not as a must draft. I said earlier the Browns are frustrating because it feels like they're very uncertain right now. There are some beat writers, more than I thought, who are saying Deshaun Watson has a real chance. I hope not. I definitely have a little Shador, no Deshaun Watson. Still think they're live for maybe a veteran to come in there as well. Yeah, I'll be interested to see if and when we get any clarity with the Browns situation. Greg saying, didn't even see who down here on the corner. Stacked room, very stacked room. Hardly ever land on 1151, so I guess some variety isn't the worst. Yeah. Yeah, they're frustrating to watch too. The Browns. Are you a Browns fan, Bats? Hopefully things are on the right path once they get past this Watson contract after this coming year. Corn goes, I'm going to take Dobbins. There's some nice value potential there. Obviously needs to stay healthy. Gives me a good 4th back. Could easily be a 5 running back team now. And probably looking wide receiver with this next pick. Let's see what gets back to me. I'll take Xavier Worthy. I'm higher on them than his current ADP, and I get him almost around past ADP. I think they're adding somebody very live for like Carnell Tate, if not maybe, with the pick they got from the Rams later in the 1st round, or even the 2nd round. But still, Worthy is going to have a role there. Who knows what the race situation at this point. But I will invest more in Worthy, who just needs to stay healthy, and I think can pay that off that pretty well. You're a Browns fan. Do I get a credit bonus if I start a Drafters account? Yeah, they are. In fact, you should be able to use code FANSPEAK. That should be, I can't remember what the deal is they're doing with Drafters. If it's a match or 50% match, but I believe you should be able to use the code FANSPEAK. I'd have to look that up, what that actual deal is for Drafters. But if that doesn't work, there's definitely other codes out there. But yeah, they do a match bonus, and Drafters also will send out a lot of times, sometimes once a month, maybe not as a brand new customer, but a lot of times where they'll do like reload bonuses, and they'll be very small. Sometimes it's, put in 100, you get 20 bucks, put in 50, get 25. Sometimes it's 100% match, like, and it'll be small. It's like put in 20, get 20. Anyway, it's still free, free money that'll be available. So Drafters is pretty good with that. So coming up here, I'm sitting at 244. Feel pretty good about running back and my quarterback start. Like Washington would be a possibility. Definite receiver, and could take a tight end as well. Don't have a ton of Mike Washington. I don't feel I need it. I feel I need to catch up more receiver. Let's take Shakir here. Here's a nice, solid floor play receiver. Even with DJ Moore, I expect him to, just work out of the slot. Have a ton of targets, ton of catches. We'll have between like 750 yards and 900 if you're super lucky, and a few touchdowns. Not a massive upside play, but 11th round, I think there's some value there. Mike Washington falls back. I think that now becomes interesting. Let's do it. Might stop at 5, could tack on to 6 later, but definitely feel very strong about the running back. $100% match up to $100 is the only one they give out. Okay, that's what I thought it was, but I couldn't remember if they changed it. Show the board, Steve. Yes. So I'm back to the board. Who got Travis Kelce, Ferguson. Love that. I was considering either one of those tight ends when it came back to me because I have 0 tight ends. But he took them. And so I got Mike Washington. I also like Bats taking Aaron Jones there. That was another one I was considering. Wasn't going to take him at, this pick, Shakir, but as a 5th back, I kind of eyed up either Washington or Aaron Jones or tight end, since I'd solidified my receiver position a little bit. So now through 12, Who-Hames is 2352, Bats 2550, which is the same as me, 2550. Greg, same trend, 2550. Hulk 2442. FK about to make his 13th round pick, 2352, and then game tight through 13 rounds, 3550. So a lot of us are waiting on tight ends. Now we'll be interested to see who gets what. The all Minnesota team. Hey, they feel a lot better now. When this contest started, I ranked Jefferson like back half of this, almost at the 2-3 turn, because just looking at his numbers with JJ McCarthy, they were just so bad last year. Like, even a full year of JJ McCarthy would not have cracked 900 yards. That's bad. But now with Kyler, he to me is a very strong late 1st round pick. The Burrow Kyler combo, that's a fun one. And yeah, I see the big Minnesota stack, but this offense. And that's a good running back room to handcuff, to be honest. So let's get Mark Andrews. Probably not going to get both, so I'll take Andrews. I already have one stack with Lawrence. But we get Andrews. That to me is a priority stack for Lamar. Yeah, I didn't really expect Expect him to come back. So Mendoza's still out there. Don't think I'll pull the trigger here. I think it's starting to get worthy. Travis Hunter. Don't need running back. Juwan Johnson. Henry goes. Likely. I think I'd take the second tight end here. Actually, let me go Travis Hunter. Taking like a floor play in Shakir, adding with the spike week and Hunter, that feels good. And I could use some more upside in the receiver room. I was trying to beat you guys to the running backs. Everyone ended up in the same spot anyways. Yep. We've got Losimo checking in. GM, good to see you. Jeff checking in. Sweet draft, Steve. Appreciate that. Draft results is giving me yeah, exactly. Like sometimes it'll be you have to put in a little bit more and it's a less percentage, but usually most months it'll be like not every month, but it's like, hey, deposit $25, get 25. So like I said, they give some good bonuses. They also have good now their main contest. Don't think you'll be able to max, but you will be able to, maybe get like 10 drafts and you get an 11th for free, that sort of thing. So we are coming up here. And if somebody in chat, let me know what are we at for legs right now, so I don't have to go to my phone and look it up. Coming up here, tight end. Sometimes you can get Chig to come back here. Figured not in this draft. That would have been fun. We're at 29 likes. Let's see. All right. 40 might be too much. I'll say if we get to 36 likes. No, 38 likes. 38 likes, I will do another draft. We got Best Ball checking in. Good to see you. Yeah, I need a shave. I haven't shaved in a while. So I'm definitely not keeping it. But I appreciate you checking in. Let's do Schultz. Get a second tight end that we feel pretty good about. See what gets back to me. So 38 likes, I will do a third draft. Let me just pop Hawkins in here. Bats is in a full, there he goes, full Minnesota stack. So I thought that might happen. So I'm going to take Jalen Naylor. This is right at his ADP. I think between the Denver trade and Naylor should be moving up. And while Trey Tucker is still a thing, I just think Naylor is a better option, most likely to lead the Raiders receivers. I mean, Bowers could still be the true alpha number one, get the most yards, most catches, definitely most touchdowns. But Naylor could lead their wide receivers, and that could be 800 to 1,000 yards, 5 to 8 touchdowns. So, I think that is very live and quite a lot of potential value this late in the draft. we got WF for Mega in here. Good to see you. Kick saying we got the 38 likes. Appreciate that. Mike saying 3738. So I appreciate you guys. We will do a third draft then. Should have made it 40. All right. Well, because I had not been able to do one the last couple of days, do 3 drafts the last couple of days. So I want to give a like goal today. I appreciate you guys for being here. Appreciate you liking it, commenting, drafting with me. We'll go over the FanSpeak members teams in here after I'm done. And even those who aren't members, really appreciate you being in here. Also, if you do want to sign up for a membership, we do review teams. We do a couple FanSpeak only shows or members only shows a week, as well as the emojis and everything else that you get with it. All right, coming up in a couple picks. Let's see. I'm seeing at 2-5-7-2. Took 2 quarterbacks early, 5th and 7th round. Will tack on a third if I can, though it's gotten picked over quite a bit. $40 likes now, done tested, Steve. Appreciate you, Mike. There goes Tua. I do want to have a little share of Tua. While it's thin, it's possible. It's possible he retains the job and starts most of the year. Yeah, I'll do another Aaron Rodgers team. I don't want to have too much. I definitely don't have as much as Meg. But as I said before, if he comes back, it's going to be one of the best 17th round picks you can make. And if he doesn't, I lost a 17th round pick. So could need to catch up here. Wide receiver a little bit. Let's go Flournoy. I have plenty of Surratt. I like that he's falling. But let me take some Ryan Flournoy. Just a little bit more certainty could be used here. I do think he's capped as a number 3 receiver. There's not necessarily the upside case that a Surratt or any of these rookies essentially have. But he gives me some extra safety. I already have a little risk with a guy like Worthy and Tyson and Travis Hunter. So let's have a little bit more security there. That's my 8th. I think I am going to add a 9th. So I think I'm done at running back with my combo of 5, taking 3 in a row, and then tacking on Dobbins and Mike Washington. Yeah, Dobbins, the injury risk. But other than that, this feels like a pretty strong running back. Second best 17th round pick, Randy Moss Jr. In Mike's eyes, Alec Manor would be what he called the top pick. So we got 2 tight ends, need a third, but there's still a few options out there. Not necessarily sure for this team, but I will start taking a little bit more Greg Dulcich. As it stands now, he's the Dolphins' top tight end. And as he stands now, he might be the Dolphins' number 2 passing option after Jane. So Hulk saying busy filling up my queue, forgot the player I actually wanted time to sweat. Who Hames? I've been taking DiMarcardo almost every draft. Yeah, I know you talked about this yesterday. I think that's fine. I do, think they add somebody else. While DiMarcardo's role will still be someone like third down, pass blocking. Not sure if there's a huge fantasy outlook for him, particularly if they were to add somebody else. But I think it's fair. I definitely think he's better than Brashard Smith. Tight end got kind of picked over. Maybe we'll only go with 2 in this draft. I think I'm going to go wide receiver here. Let's take some upside. Jeremy Bernard. And we'll see what is available to me in the 20th round, which is luckily only a couple picks for me. Ollie Gordon is tempting. I think I go Gesicki though. I still think he ends up with a pretty good role in Cincy. That's a good offense. Yeah, maybe they draft somebody. I don't think they're drafting Sadiq. Maybe they draft somebody in second or third rounds. So it feels like Gesicki is going to be the passing tight end. Sure, Chase Brown has larger involvement in the passing game, but we saw Gesicki, unfortunately for him, a lot of his playing time last year was with Jake Browning. He then gets hurt. He misses the Flacco window, comes back essentially when Burrow comes back, has a couple good games in that time. In some other games where, like that Thanksgiving game, he had 2 drops, 2 touchdown potential. One, I don't think was necessarily considered a drop, but one definitely was a drop. So, I mean, he easily could have been a 2 touchdown game for him. I think as a 20th round click, he's a fantastic tight end option. Just because the offense he's attached to. Like, I made the case for Greg Dulcich, but it's just not the same offense. And some of these other guys are like clear number 2s. All of them are clear number 2s on their teams. Dulcich did go. Okay. So let me catch up with chat, then we'll review teams and then do a third draft. My autocorrect may have just told me I'm making the wrong pick with that miss instead of Moss. No, I do agree with this. Like DiMarcardo, he's going to be 2% owned in this contest, even if he's drafted more regularly. Like he's not drafted all the time now, and he was drafted 0% up until this point. So yeah, he's going to be very, very low owned. All right, let me go over my team and then the FanSpeak members. I went 3-5-9-3. Started with Lamar again. This was the prompt of the show. Jackson and Lawrence, I think, are 2 really good values. Lawrence, we just saw it down the stretch with him and Cohen and what that offense can be. Hopefully, year 2 of this offense is even better. McCaffrey, Kenneth Walker, Kyron, again, did the triple anchor, tacked on Dobbins, who I like, and then Mike Washington, and then was happy to be done there. Wide receiver room, waited a little bit with Devonta Smith, Jordan Tyson, Jacoby Myers. So only 3 in the top 100. I mean, Worthy and Shakir not too far behind. Then Travis Hunter, Naylor, Brian Flournoy, and Jeremy Bernard. So I need the bottom half of this room to definitely get a little bit more than I probably typically like. But I think there's upside cases there. One Hunter, past ADP. He's just such a supreme talent. I just have a tough time believing he gets held down from being a receiver too much this year and as part of a stack. Of course, Jalen Naylor, maybe a bigger role with the Raiders. Flournoy, more like a floor play here, but could help solidify me. And then Jeremy Bernard, hopefully we see a nice landing spot. Went late tight end, but I love how it turned out. Andrews and Schultz, I think, are fantastic values. And Gesicki, like if Gesicki was going 177, I wouldn't bat an eye. I really wouldn't. Like, he isn't, he isn't great, but he's pretty solid. And I think the clear Bengals pass catching tight end. So, it's like, why is Gesicki going so far later than Chig or Likely? Likely is probably more full capabilities, but these are primary pass catchers. Chig especially has been, a part-time player. I don't necessarily see, I like Chig a lot. And I would take Chig above, Gesicki. And I have him ranked that way, but I just don't see why Gesicki's going 230. So next up in here, from the FanSpeak members, FK. So I believe, let me just double check here. FanSpeak members, FK, Hulk, and Huhames. So, but I appreciate everyone for joining. It's always fun drafting with people, talking through chat, looking through things. FK goes to quarterbacks, Allen Purdy, Henry, Jonah Coleman. We saw this during the draft. He was going anchor running back build. He threw 8 at it. So Derrick Henry, Jonah Coleman, Tyron Tracy, Dylan Sampson, Braylon Allen, Brian Robinson Jr., Ray Davis, and Justice Hill. So one thing, and I think there's still some medical issues to clear with Hill, but with Keaton Mitchell moving on, Hill should be clearly back as Henry's, caddy in the running back position, playing passing downs, gained his usage there 2 years ago. We saw that still be a very solid role, despite how great Henry was last year. Unfortunately, Hill got injured, and Mitchell kind of took it over. But now it's probably clear him. I mean, maybe Rashawn Ali plays a bigger role. Maybe they draft somebody. But I think last round click Hill, another guy who's nowhere near 100% drafted. So for this kind of build, it helps ensure you have the Ravens room, and then you just throwing darts at it. And would not shock me if a few of those hit. And then you go with a very, very strong wide receiver core: Chase, Flowers, Devontae Adams, Ricky Pearsall, Chris Godwin. So 5 in the top 100, led by, potentially wide receiver 1, Jamar Chase. Jalen Millen also moving up, him and Godwin. So you got 2 nice pieces of this Bucs passing room. I know you didn't take it, Baker, but you're going to get a good chunk of the Bucs passing game. So I like that, especially at fair value. I feel like, and then throwing Chris Brazell dart at the end there. Tight end Warren, Kincaid, Barner. So could be a very strong tight end room if Kincaid can stay healthy. We know Warren's upside for sure. We got Hulk in here, 3773. May, Stafford, and then he took Mendoza. I love him getting at that ADP drop, and he'll start to catch up. I think that's where we start to see him going, but that's where it is, and you're getting it now, which is good because some people just draft by ADP, and I think it's smart to draft where you expect a guy to go, where you feel you're getting value, and I think that's a good spot because like when it was like 160-ish. I considered Mendoza, but it was like, I just think it's a little too early. So 172 is really nice. Barkley, Stevenson, kind of what I did last draft. Chuba Hubbard, not fearing the AJ Dillon signing for, I think, good reason. Zach Charbonnet, James Conner, King Bigsby, Ollie Gordon. So I like that you still threw some volume at running back, even though you went with an anchor and even a solid second guy. I think it needs volume. Because you got to get this team through with Zach Charbonnet. I think Charbonnet could be a great playoff pick, fantasy playoff pick, that is. But you have to get there. And I like how you did this tank with Saquon. So kind of same with FK did, like anchor your elite running back. taking some other shots at guys who could just have bigger roles this year than are being given credit for. Hubbard, and I like that you got Hubbard later. Like, I'm not a huge fan of Hubbard in the 70s. Hubbard at 93, I think is pretty nice value. Puka, Chris Olave, Luther Burden, Mike Evans, so 4 receivers really early off the jump. I like the values there. Puka and Olave, that's just a ton of targets between them. Mike Evans, as I mentioned, he legitimately is top 10 receiver upside. Luther Burden, second year in this system. Ben Johnson, trade away DJ Moore, feels really good. Debo, God, getting a 20 pick fall on Debo. I feel worse for taking him 20 picks early last time. But no, that's great value there. Trey Tucker, and then tacking on Christian Kirk. I like that as well. Probably clearly is the slot guy in San Francisco. George Kittle, Rondé Gadsden, and Terrence Ferguson. I'm guessing FK stole your second quarterback. I think you were looking Brock Purdy would be my guess. I know you took Kittle after the fact, but it seems like you wanted to build out some San Francisco there. But no, good team all around. George Kittle, I think he does need to be in 3 tight end builds. I don't really like taking him 117. But I think having him in a 3 tight end build is the right call with him. And then we had Huhames in here. 3683, Mahomes, Love, and Deshaun Watson. I did see that during the draft, and I probably should take some Deshaun because it does sound like there's a real chance he'll get a chance to start. He goes up Wanker, Gentee Cook, at the turn. Then Tony Pollard gets Emmett Johnson, Alvin Kamara, and D. Ricardo, like he said. So, Pollard, whether it's with Tennessee, whether he gets cut or traded if they get Jeremiah Love, probably still ends up with a pretty good role. Tennessee is obviously the most projectable, but if he goes to Washington, he goes to Seattle, he even goes somewhere else, I think there's a pretty good role there. I'm still bullish on M. Johnson, damn the 40 time, and Kamara as well. Receiver wise, Rashee Rice, Garrett Wilson, Marvin Harrison, Christian Watson, Parker Washington. So was that 5 in the top 100? Then he gets a fall on Tyreek Hill, a fall on Tank Dell. That's kind of right where I would take Tank Dell. As I said all along, I think Dell and Knowles ADP should flip, and that's kind of what you see there. And then Isaiah Bond with the Deshaun Watson, Travis Kelce, Jake Ferguson, and Juwan Johnson. So big Mahomes stack, which I think is nice. Jordan Love with Watson, and was that the only one? Yeah. And then Deshaun Watson stacked up later. So that's a good draft. This can be a tough room. That was a fun draft. Let me get back to chat, and then we will get into the third draft. Fun one, surprised I'm okay with my team in this room. Yeah, I mean, I think we all were doing our own thing. Didn't see too much craziness, so that's always good. Let me take a drink real quick. One thing with being in these rooms with a lot of good drafters is, everyone kind of goes with their plan, so it might not impact your draft near as much. You have less wild card things where somebody goes 20 picks too early or completely unstacked or that kind of stuff. They're taking Coleman over Kittle, but I'm okay with it. Gotcha. RB's got a little overbought in this room, so tough to make a team like this. They were flying. We got Dean Johnson in here. Gesicki has a history of doing poorly in his current offense, so ceiling is low. Lots of people think likely was capped by Mark Andrews in the offense. It's sort of likely got top tight end money to an extent, but honestly, Gesicki's numbers are, I think, better than people think. 2 years ago, he was really good down the stretch, and some people associate that with the T. Higgins injury. There was that 1 or 2 of the games, but most of the games was not the T. Higgins injury, it was just Gesicki. Then they go and pay Gesicki Unfortunately, started off very poor for Gesicki with Burrow getting hurt so early. When he came back, let me just look it up real quick. Like Gesicki, he had a couple usable weeks down the stretch, and like I said, there's also that game where he could have had 2 touchdowns. So yeah, he had a 14-point game, a 9-point game. I thought there was one other one, but it seems like that was it. I'm not expecting 20, 25-point games from Mike Gesicki. I don't think he's challenging for tight end 1, but what I do think he's challenging is for tight end 24, tight end 20 maybe. And because 2 years ago, points per game, he actually finished, I think, tight end like 15, 16. So, I think there's more upside than people give him credit for. When I say that, doesn't mean I think he's going to be a top tight end. I don't think you're taking him above Loveland, but it's just there's enough surplus value there for a guy who goes around 20. Chig has always been a very athletic guy and could have been handicapped by a terrible. No, he absolutely was. But Mike Gesicki's a very athletic tight end. Like, look at his like, he's not a lateral tight end, but straight line speed, vertical speed, stuff like that. His combine spider chart is, that's Sadiq's better, but not many others are. Super glad I went double anchor with running back. Yeah, you kind of need running back early in that draft. Gesicki has 2 touchdowns 3 straight years. Sure, but he's on a team that, if Burrow's healthy, can produce 40 passing touchdowns. Very few other tight ends can say that, is the way I look at it. And like last year, Burrow wasn't healthy, and that was a factor. And then Gesicki wasn't healthy, and that was an even bigger factor. But if Burrow's healthy, if Gesicki's healthy, there is there's an upside case for him that just a lot of tight ends don't have. And to your point, Chig has gotten two touchdowns the last 3 years. He had 3 as a rookie. Sure, bad offense, bad quarterback play. I get it. But even on Washington isn't throwing for 40 touchdowns. They're pulling out throwing for 30. So there's just less touchdown even potential there, is the way I look at it. Very good on paper per route basis when Burrow's on the field. Absolutely. Might be lying, but that's what I told myself. Should have drafted an actual double anchor, AJ. Yeah. How could you pass that up? And once I saw how many running backs were pulled up at AP and how many wide receivers from, I went for it. And like you said, mix it up. Trying to play catch up is usually worse. But I agree, and I think you try to make the most out of it. And it's like one of those, you're going to need, and this, you're going to need, for this team to work, you're going to need your, Henry to be Derrick Henry, and then the rest of the running backs just kind of rotate through. And then your receivers to just be extreme enough that you're getting good enough flex scores to compete, with the flex scores coming from the running back, which can be tough. But the ideal is you're just so good at wide receiver that makes up for it. All right, let's get into the last draft and do one more. I will count it down. Enter in 10 seconds. Enter in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Enter. All right, waiting on 4 people. Good news is we'll probably draft 2,000 more teams and I won't even remember this one tomorrow. Yeah, that does. I definitely know that feeling. All right, still waiting on one more person. Let's get this draft started. Doesn't look like there's any major news. Obviously talked about the AJ Dillon thing. I saw this, from a Titans beat writer, Wandale, yes, at the presser, says he expects to play outside as well in the slot. I don't know if I buy that. In the extent that he'll play some outside. Last year he played like 35% outside. But if he's talking like it'll be more like 50-50, I'd be kind of shocked. So game tight, got the 1 again. I'm in the 3 spot. FK is in the 10, and that's all I recognize from chat. If anyone else is in here, stop in and say hi, and good luck to everyone. Right at the 3 spot this time. I'm Chase over Puka, so if it goes 1-2 as expected, I think I would just go Chase. Here, let me go to the board since we got a while until I'm back up. I think the bigger question will be, can Tamiri DK play outside more? And also, it sounds like they are rolling with the Calvin Ridley again. So what does that mean for Ian Manor? If him and TK are kind of fighting for that number 3 role. At the turn here, we see Neighbors get pulled up to 11. That's interesting. You don't see that too often. I don't mind taking some shots, flipping the board. It's not something I do a lot. I like doing it more with the 2nd round pick than the 1st round pick, personally. He does, kind of a unique combination. You wouldn't really get Neighbors London. But I think I'd do it with like Neighbors a chain or Neighbors Walker or Love, whoever his next running back is, because that's even a more unique combo. And also should have higher scoring potential. So kind of chalk through here. The running backs. One good thing with Kyler and Love getting pulled up, not that I think it's 100, or not Kyler, Kenneth Walker and Love getting pulled up, it is helping to push Trey McBride back to the turn here. I think that is the right call. And honestly, I think you can make the case Bowers is better than McBride. I think it's very close. I'm on the clock again, and we will easily just take Derrick Henry. Chase Henry is, a start that I get a lot, but it feels pretty good. We saw Big Dog still has a lot left in the tank at the end of the season. Go to Nico. The issue with Neighbors Cook is it was somewhat of a natural combo early in the contest. I guess maybe. Or Neighbors London. Okay. Yeah. No, I agree with that. And it's just, and this is why I generally would rather, if you want a unique combo, I would rather go more, normal in the first round and then pull up somebody from the second round, like, let's just say the guy who would cook here, or the guy, or you taking the lamb, like pull up, Derrick Henry lamb, or, Chase Brown lamb. Like that's a unique combo. To me, it's just, I don't know. I just don't know if there's enough upside there to justify it with Neighbors. Just coming off the injury, it's just too uncertain right now. We could get to BBM season, and this is exactly how we're taking it in July. And also feel better about London with, the quarterback outlook and all that. So, and that's the other thing with it is, I just don't know if it's that, like it might be unique for the big board, but not necessarily for our total drafting exposure. I just think the big thing is there is a legitimate opportunity cost by just totally passing on that huge swath of running backs at the end of the first and in the early second. You're kind of betting against all of them, and that doesn't feel great. So let me take Adams here. See what I get coming back to me. I will not take Lamar in this draft. I've taken him the last two drafts. Need to not take him every time he falls past 50. See what Game Tight does here. Takes Judkins and Tootin. All right, that's good. No, not Travion. I was going to take McLaurin, but Mike Evans, I just was raving about him. Let's go. So kind of the anchor start that FK had from this spot last time. Not sure if I'm going to do the exact same running back build out. Hopefully I can get something back to me in these next couple of picks, but we'll see. You don't always get that back. I love this wide receiver start. Chase, Nico, Adams, Evans. Yes, Adams and Evans are older, but when they're on the field, they're two of the best receivers in the league, and they produce at a very regular basis. When I was citing stats earlier for Gesicki, that was on standard, not half point. So yeah, I did think his numbers were a little better. But Adams finished, 8th in total points despite missing the final 4 games. All right. Coming up here. Made the turn into the 6th round. So, I mean, I will not necessarily my favorite players, but I do like 11th hole going 3 straight receivers and 3 straight running backs, and add some balance. You know, even though I'm not super high in like Harvey and even in Buka at their costs. Let's see if I get Burrow back. I should, I'm assuming. Okay, this feels good. Burrow, Derrick Henry, Jamar Chase, Nico Collins, Devontae Adams, and Mike Evans. Game tight, grabbing DK Metcalf. And Sutton, so nice strong combo there. Dark goes. As much as I like Alec Pierce, I will go Ramondre here. I do really need to catch up at running back, and this is the tough thing, and it's kind of like FK said, is you really need to push it up. And I think Ramondre is fine at that ADP, but it's just, boy, Alec Pierce would have felt good. I know I'm strong at receiver. Could it get stronger? Yes. But Ramondre, I just think hits my lineup way more. So let me go back to the board and see what's out there. Oh yeah, and Adams' contingent value, if Puka misses any time, you know, he's wide receiver 1 or 2, right? Like he's just in such a great spot. This does assume Stafford's health, of course, but it's just such a great offense, such a great system. I don't know if they've officially brought Jimmy G back, so there's at least a likely veteran quarterback there, and I think one way or another that will be the case. Whether it's Jimmy G, maybe Kirk Cousins if it doesn't work out, you know, with another team, maybe somebody else. But I don't think they're just going to go in with like, you know, Stetson Bennett and a rookie or something like that. But, you know, to me, like, yes, I need them healthy, but just seeing these last 2 years, what Adams and Evans have done, despite all the missed time, is pretty impressive. You know, Adams gets hurt, you know, early week 15. He got hurt week 14, came back, got hurt week 15, and then misses the final 3 games. So roughly 3.5, 4 games, however you want to define it. Still finishes as a top 10 receiver. It's insane. And the fact that Evans did the year before, exact same thing, got hurt early in that Ravens game, first half. He did have a touchdown before he got hurt, if I recall, but finished as top 9th receiver despite missing like 3.5 games. Very few guys can say that. And all those other guys go in the first like 2 rounds. So that's why, to me, they just remain such stellar values in this like 4th, 5th range. We'll take Algier here. You know, I think he's fine as a 3rd back. I might do Purdy as well. Stafford is also an option. Corum would be a solid floor play. We do Purdy. I think Purdy just has more upside than Stafford. I mean, Stafford's coming off his career year, don't get me wrong, but he's far more likely to throw for 30 touchdowns than 40 touchdowns, much less 46. And there's zero rushing upside to Stafford, where Purdy actually has a little bit. All right, let's get back to the board. I made my picks. I do need to start taking Romeo Dubs more and Godwin. Those are two guys that I was taking a lot of Dubs early when he's going 140s, but as he's gotten to this range, which I still actually think gives him some surplus value, I just need to find a way to get him more and more. I think he's going as wide receiver 40 something, 46 maybe, 45. I might as well look it up. It's just guessing. 49. And last year, I think he finished as wide receiver 35, 36. And I just think with the situation with the Patriots, he, not going to be a top 15, even top 20 receiver, but top 25, maybe top 30 for sure. If he can stay healthy. So, that's what I like to find is guys who offer surplus value. And we know he's got some red zone ability. So I could see him stack some touchdowns on that team. All right, back to the board. Under an hour on some drafters teams. That's not great, but I'll catch up on those after this draft. Dean, are you in this draft? If so, let me know what your team is. All right, so I'm up. I'll take Malik Willis. It's not a range that I usually. These receivers are very flat to me. Running back, I can pull up Rashard White. Mason's okay, but don't love it. I think having Algier puts me in a position where you don't need to force running back. I'm just going to take whatever receiver gets back to me. Would like Coker, but we'll go. I don't have a ton. Juwan Jennings. Hey, there's a chance he goes to Miami. So that would be fun. But he probably gets a starting landing spot. Without knowing where he's going, I think you can make a case that many of these other receivers are stronger than him. But if he gets a good landing spot, then he maybe gets the edge. So I want Willis there. He already invested decently at quarterback. But I like Willis as kind of like the spike week guy for this team. I know Burrow and Purdy, A, both have their injury history, but B, they both should have very strong floors and will spike some as well, but mainly through their arms. Willis could give me, as we saw when he came in against the Ravens, what do you have, like 31 points? He was like quarterback 2 on the week. So, yeah. Oh, you're in the 11th pick. Oh, well, no, you're great. I'm glad you joined. You're the it's Peyton and Eli. I can't read what the team name is. So, yeah, you went the 3 wide receivers, 3 running backs, Kraft, Pittman, Price, Downs. So, yeah, you said you were getting sniped at stacks. I do think guessing Dart was one of those. That is one thing is, Dart's the type of quarterback you don't really need to stack. So he's more appealing to others, which can get frustrating for sure. Let me go back to the board. Hulk saying, I may ranked ahead of Caleb Williams, but now their ADP is flipped. Doesn't have to be this specific example, but do you prioritize the stack in this situation, or do you mix it up? I generally, when they're close, I'm going to prioritize the stack. Now, at the same time, I think if you're doing enough volume, mixing it up makes sense, because you just having more unique combos could just be what pays off playoff time. Like, yes, there is correlation with stacking, but it doesn't mean, I'm going to make this pick and then I'll say my piece. We'll take Rashard White. Like you said, May versus Caleb, and I'm not sure who you're talking about. Zach, I'm assuming more Caleb just because there's more stacking options, but let's say, and you said you'd May higher, so I'm assuming that's what you mean. But let's say Odunze, and Odunze is the wide receiver you need. He's got a 25-point game, and Caleb has a good 20-point game. But May gets that 30 burger, then yeah, you want the combo of Odunze and May. So having more combos makes sense. So to me, draft and volume, I'd mix it up. That's why, for as good as stacking is, it's not the be-all, end-all. We'll take another Kelsey share. And, we're just seeing guys recently, and not just in the BBM, but other tournaments, win without major prioritization of stacking. And like the guy who won a couple years ago, he was trying to do the Dak Goff stack. Both those guys got sniped. He had Lamb and ASB. Those are absolutely the 2 receivers you needed. But he got Jordan Love, and Love was quarterback 2 that week. And it paid off. Mike giving FK a hard time. That 10th spot is definitely paying the rake. Those Loveland versus Burden versus Dunze guys are fighting over Caleb, lowering his advance rate, and that's a little bit of it too. You're just, it's going to be spread out since all those guys go in the same range. Can you get a Dunze with one of the other 2? Sure, but it's not as guaranteed. So mixing it up can be fine. And then sometimes you want to go in that direction. Like, maybe you don't want any of those pieces, but you do need Caleb because he's got that 30-point week. But he spread it around to all 3 of those guys. Each of them get a touchdown. Each of them gets 80 yards, and they all have good weeks, but none of them have great weeks. But somebody else who you could take an above them, Mike Evans. Mike Evans has the 30 burger. So I like to mix it up. I think we at times get overly locked into stacking, and we should just keep in mind the perspective of, while there's value, it's just one piece of the puzzle. So the double quarterback there, I see what you mean. Like Rob, rude but true. Feels gross picking quarterback who have 2 rounds lower in my ranks over quarterback I like. Yeah. I mean, they're fairly close to my ranks, but I'm with you, May over Caleb. I actually have Caleb next. I have them both above Jaden. Just because I'm really excited for I'm excited what all three do in year three, but I just think Jaden is probably in the worst situation right now. I'm kind of open to David Blau being, a good offense coordinator, but I know the other two are good offense coordinators. In fact, David Blau, they're saying he could be Ben Johnson light. Well, Caleb has Ben Johnson. And then Caleb just has way more weapons, and May honestly right now has more weapons until Washington signs some more receivers. All right, here, Barner's fine. Let me just go James Conner. He falls sometimes, but he already fell 11 spots. Maybe I could have got him at 171, but I do think I like Emma Johnson. Stone Taj is fine, but Conner I feel the most confidence with. I wouldn't let that make me fade Caleb, though. Week 17 matters. Yeah, no, I don't necessarily think you're saying fade Caleb. It's just you felt the price was not right. I'm going to take Emmett and, end it at 6 running backs. Starting Henry and kind of, like an anchor build. I initially thought I was going to go like a 7 running back build, but I think I caught up enough. Go 6. Get my 8 receivers. I got 4 essentially in the top 50, and then Juwan Jennings a little later. And then I just need 2 more tight ends. It's kind of how I look at this team now. All right, coming up here. Dalton now the backup in Philly. Interesting. Is he? I mean, what happened to Tanner McKee? I do think Dalton is a good veteran to bring in. Could also, and maybe that's how they see it. Like, let's get a guy that we feel good about. As I see it now, it's a 7th rounder. So yeah, just for a 7th rounder, veteran guy. For as much as Jalen Hurts has sky high upside, he's also very inconsistent. And then also maybe help develop McKee some. Maybe they end up trading McKee. And there was definitely rumors of there being a market for him. Maybe they feel like they could get they trade a 7th for Dalton. They get a 4th, 4th plus for Tanner McKee. That'd be a hell of a deal. I'm not sure if they're doing that though. All right, back to the board. We are into the 16th round now. Thank you everyone for joining. This has been fun. I let the community keep me honest, therefore keep my teams diversified. And I think that's a good way to do it. When you're drafting in volume, try different things, different builds. Like sometimes pass up that stack. Sometimes, when we get the schedule, sometimes pass up that week 17 correlation, because it then can make you more unique. Like when you had the turn pick last year and the 2 Cardinals kind of go in, you'd take Chase, and then it's like Higgins or Chase Brown and 2 Cardinals, and everyone had those combinations. Sometimes that could be the right thing. Maybe you need one side of it. Maybe you needed both Chase and Chase Brown, but you didn't want a Cardinal in return, and you want some other piece there. So no more running backs. Need some receiver and tight end options. We'll take Trey Tucker. I think I'm still going to let Franklin fall. Not sure who comes out of it as the third wide receiver in Denver. Tucker, while Naylor hurts him some, there's still, I think a path for Tucker to be wide receiver 1 on that team. And even at wide receiver 2 at pick 190, I think it would be totally fine. So I think I'm going to grab a tight end here. I'll go Kate Otten. So I'm at 3662. And I will go back to the board. So not the same trade as yesterday, but we did get a trade today. Good old Andy Dalton, staying in this league for another year. I mean, he's drafted in 2011. Cam Newton has been retired for how many years now? And everyone else from that class, the Blaine Gabberts, the Ponder, Jake Locker. Oof, it was not a great rookie first round class outside of Newton. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Back to the board. But good money to be a backup quarterback. Through 17 rounds now. Game tights at 2483. I'm 3662. I didn't miss anyone. FK is at 2573 and the 11th spot 3563. So very different build structures, or different things that we're probably looking to round out these teams. And yeah, I mean, for me, it's just wide receiver and tight end with these last 3 picks. FK takes potentially the Dolphins' #1 receiver, Malik Washington. What a snipe, FK, from my Malik Willis there. No, I don't even know if Malik Washington is the #1 receiver, to be honest. I think we think that, but that was a different team that drafted him. Different GM, different coach. So I just don't know where to expect him. I want some of them, but it's just not a priority for me, even in a Willis build. I think the Dolphins now have 6 picks in the first 3 rounds, so I expect them to add at least 1, if not 2 receivers. And speaking of it, which one of them might end up being Elijah Surratt? But just in general, I think he's a very good pick at 214. Just seems to be getting lost in the shuffle of the rookie debate. But I do think he's the type of guy that coaches are going to love, quarterbacks are going to love. And a lot of times that not only gets you pretty solid draft pick, that gets you on the field. Leo saying, I see Boston dropping lately. I think people are afraid of the Miami landing spot. I think some people worried about some of the athletic testing. I don't think it's right. Like, I think Boston is still first round receiver, first round talent. Yeah, there are some potentially bad landing spots, starting with the Jets at 16, or if they move back. Of course, the Browns at 24, not great. Miami at the end of the round now, for sure. All those would be bad picks. So sorry, I didn't say it, but I take Bernard there, double tap the rookies. And this, I might do another Mike Gesicki team with the Burrow. I also like Parkinson. I could take a rookie here as another tight end. But sorry, went off on tangent there. But no, there's a lot of bad landing spots, or any of these guys fall to the early second round. Same situations. Jets have 2 second rounders. Browns obviously an early second round. A few other teams that not really ideal landing spots. But to me, Tedder McMillan went to a pretty bad landing spot when it was all said and done. Bryce Young is about as average-ish to below average as you get. The Panthers were one of the lowest passing rate teams in the league, and he was still a good pick. I understand he was like the first full receiver off the board. Boston would not be that, or any of these other guys, but to me, landing spot is not. I'd much rather prefer these guys to go to Miami or even Cleveland. As much as I question the quarterback play in Cleveland, then I don't think the Rams are taking one at 13. But if the Rams take one, that guy's buried. He's just not going to be a fantasy factor year one, or some other. I don't think Seattle's taking a receiver, but who knows? They've done some strange things in the past. They take a receiver in round 1. That would be a terrible landing spot. Even Dallas. Dallas has 2 first rounders. They use that second one on a receiver. Maybe they beat out Ryan Flournoy, but are we sure? I mean, Flournoy looked pretty good, and you got, of course, Lamb and Pickens. So outside of some weird than Pickens being traded situation, just those would to me be, dynasty wise, great landing spots. We want them on good teams, but for best ball, I think those would be really bad landing spots. If it goes to some of these teams that are a bit more already stacked up, and they're just kind of Mbuka ended up with truly everything breaking his way last year, and he was just fine. Evans misses 9 games. Chris Godwin missed 10 games. McMillan missed 14 games, 13 games, whatever it was. And Mbuka still couldn't crack 1,000 yards. But he truly had it all kind of work out for him. So I go Gesicki there just with the stack. I kind of like Claire as well. Let me finish up in chat, and then I will go over these teams. One more like for 50. Thanks for getting me close. I'd love to get over 50, of course. I think it'll be regulated back to the wide receiver 3 most likely, but just looking to vary exposures now. Yeah, no, I mean, I think Malik Washington late is fine. Just some people on Twitter and stuff were saying he's Dolphins wide receiver 1. It's that part I think is off base, but still, 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th rounds, any of those rounds, Malik Washington's still fine. If he starts to get pulled up to 15th round, 14th round, no way. Pats have to draft Boston just for the jersey sales alone. We got Royals last year in Kansas City. That's right. You think Noel will be 3rd in Houston, or is it Dell's spot to lose? I think Dell will have a chance for it. But I think Noel, to me, has a better chance. A couple of years younger, a lot healthier, not coming off 2 major leg injuries, a little bigger and more well-rounded of a player. Dell lost any bit of a step from these 2 injuries. I think that could be really tough for him because he was already just being so small, and this is why, teams have ranges of, size and speed ranges. Like the fact that Dell is so small, he had to be as good as he was. Like if there's any variation to that, even a 2% reduction, it's hard for him to get on an NFL field, like as a primary, in the top 3. And so that's my concern with Dell. You also still have Xavier Hutchinson there. So I think Noah will be above Dell. Just that's my lean, that's my feel. More recently drafted, both were 3rd round picks. So it's not like there's a massive draft capital change. This offense coordinator was with Noel, he was a previous offense coordinator when they drafted Dell. So that's kind of how I see it. Tez had 5 touchdowns last year with a little playing time. Godwin and missed games last 2 years. Yeah, I mean, I think Tez as a late 4th round pick is fine. Late 4th receiver, not 4th round pick, sorry. These kind of guys like Tolbert, I think is fine. We just saw Hollywood now potentially Eagles number 3, maybe moves up to 2. Some rookies, Kyle Williams definitely is a good click there. Marvin Mims, I'm a little more wary, before the trade, absolutely. Now I'm a little bit more wary. I would not be surprised to see if one of Mims or Bryant, maybe Franklin, gets traded. No guarantees, but just seems to be a very crowded situation. I know Mims has great special teams ability, but just kind of hard to imagine they keep all 5 of those guys. All right, let's go over these teams. I go 3, 6, 8, 3. Burrow, Purdy, Malik Willis. Give me I think, and this is kind of what we talked about earlier, taking 3 quarterbacks in the window, but not taking necessarily one of the top 2. I think this is the type of quarterback room. Yes, it's 3 in the top 10, but if Burrow and Purdy stay healthy, this team can really end up being the number 1 scoring quarterback team in this draft. It is that kind of upside. And I know people would say, oh, you could do that with any 2 of those guys. Maybe. But I think my ceiling just got way higher with all 3, with a guy with some rushing ability also, and then 2 of the better passers in the league. Running back wise, and this is where it matters. Did I get enough in the running back room? Derrick Henry, I need him to be, big dog, just dominating one top, 5 running backs in the league. Ramondre, Algier, obviously, I kind of handcuffed the Arizona room. I don't hate that. May grow an article about handcuffing Huheems, and I talked about it a little yesterday. Ideally, I question the offense. The price of 94 and 166, probably most weeks I'm getting 1 usable week. Am I getting a ton of ceiling plays? Probably not, but a lot of times, ideally, one of those 2 is hitting my flex. Rashard White can be doing that as well, and of course, M. Johnson also. So I will need Stevenson to hit my RB2 a lot of the time. I think there's a lot of chance for RB2 or flex scores from that next group, guys. Receiver wise, very strong, and I am, of course, expecting some flex scores from this group, but Chase, Nico, Devontae Adams, Mike Evans legitimately could have 4 guys in the top 10. I know some people say that's crazy, but I do, think that's more viable than people give credit for. 4 top 10 receivers, I should say, not top 10 total fantasy scores, but 4 top 10 receivers if I can get good health. Juwan Jennings, Trey Tucker, Elijah Surratt, Jerry Bernard. So here I'm just taking some, Jennings maybe more of a floor play, and probably should have had a more secure floor play at 5 there. But Tucker and then 2 rookies, get some upside shots. If they don't hit my lineup much, I'm probably still okay because of that elite core. And then Kelsey, Otten, Mike Gesicki, I'm okay with the tight end room like that. Do I think it's going to dominate the tight end scoring? No, but I think it can be more than fine. Kelsey finished as tight end 3 last year, and that's with Mahomes missing the last couple weeks. And in points per game, he was a little lower, but tight end 9, I got him way below that. So I feel good there. I think think FK was the only other FanSpeak member in here. 2783, Jane Daniels, Sam Darnold. So double quarterback, one elite, one mid. Achan, Swift, Rico, Tony Pollard. Talked about Tony Pollard last time. The fact that he's fallen, I think you're getting some nice value there. I think Rico is the right call there. I think he's definitely better than Jalen Warren, and there is some real surplus value here at pick 87. Tyron Tracy could be clear number 2. Ollie Gordon, Najee Harris. Yeah, these are my types of backs at the end to round it out. Lamb, Higgins, Burden, Pearsall. Kind of similar to my build, like 4 fairly early receivers. Anchor, he went a little more in the mid tier here with Worthy and Rashid Shaheed, and then Ridley and Malik Washington to finish it off. So it's going to be a very strong receiver room, no question with that. Especially if Worthy can stay healthy. A lot of spike week potential here with guys like Worthy and Shaheed as well. And then tight end room, Juwan Johnson, then 2 late, even much later in Njoku. Still need to see a landing spot there in Freiermuth, who I think is very safe as well. I want to thank everyone for joining. Thank you everyone for liking the episode, all the comments. I'll hit up chat before we get out of here. Excuse me. I'll hit up chat before we get out of here, but I'll be back tomorrow. Not sure yet if I'll do baseball. I might do baseball during the day and then do a sibling showdown at night. Keep an eye out for that one. But I want to thank everyone again for all your support. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. That is definitely our next goal, to get to 1,000 subs. And let me finish up with chat. You got your 50, Steve. Appreciate that. Great job in chat. And make sure to join the Discord, because Steve just gives out good breakdowns to your questions here. Thank you. Mike Rob using the emojis. Appreciate that. Paulino, per route number can be deceiving on unlimited routes, but no perform very well in his limited role. No, I agree with that. There were times where he had a little bit more opportunity, with like when Kirk was out and stuff like that. And he had a couple of nice games. Who do you think has a better chance for year 2 to lead, Golden or Higgins? I'm going to say Higgins. I think quarterback play leans Packers. But I do like that the Texans are improving their offensive line. I just think it's so much more murky for the Packers. Even with Romeo Doubs gone, you have Watson, you have Reed at the receiver position, then Tucker Kraft. Like, I like Dalton Schultz, but he's no Tucker Kraft. And while neither Watson or Reed are Nico Collins, I think it's just much tougher for Golden to be like the number 2 receiver, much less the number 2 option, where I think there's a path where Higgins is just the clear number 2 option on the Texans. We're sleeping on AJ Barner, or I'm getting Kraft vibes when he becomes more trusted and involved. I think his ADP is very strong, like typically in the 160s, sometimes falls to the 170s. There's just a lot of tight ends in that area that I like. But no, it should be a good offense. I don't expect Arroyo to take too big on of a role. They seem to really like AJ Barner. They just lost their pass catching running back, so maybe more of those passes go towards him. But they are kind of deep at receiver. So, I think he's good where he's going. And as like a good number 2 tight end, I think he's pretty strong. We've got Hulk in here. Thank you. Thanks for joining. Appreciate that. Meg saying my free agency article is posted. Check it out on our Substack. As I mentioned before, you can do a 1-week free trial. And then it's a one-time year payment, $34.99 for the rest of the year. After that, 3 hours warming up for the 24-hour live stream. Love it. Yeah, I need a drink. I need to catch up in a bunch of slow drafts is actually what I really need to do. But thank you everyone for joining. You guys have a great rest of the day. Who Hames is on with our guy Justin Bruni at I believe 5 p.m. Eastern. So that's a little over an hour. Check that out. I believe it's 5. But I hope everyone has a great rest of the day, and I will catch you next time.